So hello, everyone, and welcome to the May 12th redistricting meeting. Thank you for joining me tonight. We're doing our interviews for redistricting masters, which is really exciting because that will really launch us into the next phase of this work once we're fully organized and staffed. So I'm gonna, we didn't have any written comment that came in via writing this time. So I just want to acknowledge that. I'll go into roll call, and then we'll do the approval of the minutes with Leah, and then we'll go right into our agenda. So Leah?
I'm here.
Scott Bader?
Here.
Anna?
Here.
Susan?
Here.
Jared?
Here.
Nathan?
Here.
Jocelyn? I know, we know Jocelyn's here because she told us.
I am here. Sorry, I'm here.
No problem. Simone?
Here.
And Angela. And we know Angela is here as well because she told us. Wonderful.
Great. Thank you for roll call. And I love that we're representing being full humans today. That's what it is to be on a community commission. The minutes were distributed. Any discussion? Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Nicole.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So my comments today are just basically, I did check in with our planning staff, and because they're working on the comp plan, they did not feel they would be necessarily the best option, but would totally be open to revisiting that after we conducted interviews and had discussion today, if you all felt like that was something that you did want to talk about. So that's great. And then the second thing that I wanted to bring up today for all of you is just, we've gotten a lot of, like, a wide range of quotes from applicants that you all are looking for redistricting. And just for reference, the city paid the districting master who built our districting plan from the ground up about $23,000. As you all know, you've been tasked with choosing a districting master, and you may be considerate of cost as a relevant component to the selection, particularly in light of the city's ongoing structural deficit. And that, we just completed this original process about a year ago. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that to the surface. I did get a couple of questions via email, and so I wanted to share that information with everyone. So from there, that's all I have to share today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for those comments, Nicole. We're going to move into just going over a bit of the process before we get started with our interviews. And I know that we're on a tight timeline. And speaking of timeline, Nicole has requested that I remind everybody. So we have 30 minutes with each applicant. And it's incredibly important, just for procedure and transparency, that we try to do all 11 questions for each candidate. If you do have a follow-up question that pertains to a specific answer that we received to a question that we've already approved, just wait for the follow-up until the end of the interview. That way we can make sure we get through all 11 questions, and then we can follow up. And we have to be really careful to not introduce a new question. We're just responding to one of their answers. Everyone has their ranking sheets. Nicole, I did have a follow-up question for you for the ranking sheets. When do you want those? Do you want us to send the ranking sheets before we discuss, or are we sending them after the meeting?
You can send them to me between like now and over the weekend would be great. So just, take notes as you see fit. Just know that they will be public documents. So they'll be, I'm not going to put them in my notes or my minutes, but they are subject to public disclosure. So just so you know. for transparency wise. And you can, I could even arrange for any of you to, if you wanted to hand deliver, if you don't have an ability to, or you decide to do handwritten notes or whatever, you could mail them into me. I'm flexible with how we get them, or if you can take a photo of them and it's fairly clear, or scan them with your iPhone, you can send them to me that way. They don't have to be perfect. It just needs to be legible. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, great. And depending on how the interviews go at the end, we have a couple of options for if we want to discuss tonight, if we want to call a special meeting. I think everyone here is aware of our timeline and how important it is that we make a decision as soon as possible. But we'll get to that. That's your teaser trailer for after the interviews. Are there any questions before we get started with the applicants? All right, great. So I will go through the role as we go to the questions. I'll introduce you and then you can ask your question, and let's do this.
So I believe Dennis is here today representing King County GIS. And thank you very much for joining us for this interview and for responding to our call for bids. I'm Nicole. We've emailed back and forth, so it's really nice to meet you. And Leah is our chair today, and then this is the rest of our commission. So I don't
Pleased
think we'll
to meet
waste
you
a
all.
lot of time with introductions of who everyone is. I think we'll just jump into it so that we don't go over our 30-minute time cap.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dennis. So the first question is actually coming from me to kick things off. If you can just introduce yourself and provide a brief overview of your background and your familiarity with the city of Everett.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Dennis Higgins. I'm from the King County GIS Center. The King County GIS Center is a fee-supported agency within KCIT. We were designated by Executive Sims almost 20 years ago as a body that would serve both internal and external needs that would help grow spatial data and spatial data analysis within the region. And that's how I come to you today as a person representing an agency that is capable of performing this work for you and very interested in doing so. My background personally is I've worked for King County for almost 30 years in GIS the whole time. I am a certified GIS professional, or GISP as the appendage goes on my name. And many of our staff are as well. Our staff consists of GIS analysts, programmers, folks that are doing ad hoc and program GIS work on a daily basis. This ranges from maintaining key county data sets like parcels and streets to doing in-depth analyses for county council members, for different divisions and departments within King County government. It also includes, as I mentioned, some external projects, and a couple notable ones recently are some redistricting work that we've been doing. I will come back to that on the next question, I believe. I also wanted to mention that, as a resident of the area, I'm familiar with the city of Everett. Some of our staff members live in Snohomish County, if not in the city of Everett. I'm familiar with it as someone who's spent time there, spent money, spent time in the arena, and have passed through obviously many times. I have a basic knowledge of the lay of the land of the city of Everett. One last thing I'd like to mention is that in my private personal life, I spent 10 years as an elected official myself. In a part-time capacity for the city of Kent. I was a city council member. And so I have some familiarity with working with public officials and working with designees such as yourself, committees that are appointed to perform work like this. So yeah, I think that will do it for that question.
Great. Thank you so much. Next question comes from Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. I think you obviously hinted at the question there. Obviously, it's about, have you ever done redistricting work? We know you have. So why don't you elaborate on that for us, as I think we're about to do that. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Bader. Appreciate that. Yes, recently, currently, I should say, we are conducting redistricting work for the city of Seattle. We're right in the middle of it. It is scheduled to wrap up in the same time frame roughly as the city of Everett. So we've gone a few months down the road with them. We're currently at a position where they requested the consultant prepared 4 example maps, we're calling them now. Some of the public members have been a little confused that those are actual proposals. Those were examples that my staff created that vary from minor tinkerings along the edges of the existing districts in order to get them into a population balance, to letting the computer software do the trick and come up with some boundaries completely from scratch without taking too many other criteria into account. So those 4 proposals that we've done for them that are currently up on their website are running that spectrum. But again, they are meant as consultant-driven examples only, and we're still in the process of working with each commissioner to refine their own vision and plan, at which point they'll be presented back to the public. Going into this weekend, we have our first of their public forums, and I will be present for that on Sunday afternoon. Prior to that, last year, we conducted the same sort of work for the King County Council for the 9 council districts, and we bid competitively for that, and we were selected. We participated in that process. It was quite compacted given their timeline, especially compared to the Seattle process, but it was a successful implementation, and those districts are now in effect, and by all accounts, I believe if you speak to any of the commissioners from that process, they were very happy with the work.
Thank you.
The next question goes to Anna.
Hello. Okay, so my next question. Please explain how you view the role of district master.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes. The way that we've conducted ourselves in the 2 processes that we've been a part of recently, we consider ourselves consultants and advisors. We are not the decision makers. We are with you to help you answer the questions that you may have as you consider various alternatives, to bring to you relevant data, to occasionally point out to you when things that you may be striving to accomplish might not be possible for different competing reasons. An example of that is that, you know, to get down to the final plan, you will have to bring all of the districts into a balance. The target, I have not read the city charter necessarily, but I believe it will be within 0.5%, and that's what we've used on the other 2 processes. And so there are times when you may want to include the entirety of a neighborhood, for example, in one district. However, that district may already be in balance population-wise. So what will the trade-offs be? That's the job of the district master, is to listen to your concerns, to take them into account, to suggest to you ways that those concerns may be accommodated, and also to point out to you when it won't be possible to accommodate every single concern that you're taking, that you'd like to take into account, and begin to explore those trade-offs. So our job is to help you through that process. We won't make the final decisions. That's up to you. That's what you were appointed to do and selected to do. But we will be with you throughout that process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Jared.
Hi, thank you for your time. And my question for you is, what is the biggest problem that you would expect to face when reviewing Everett's district map?
Well, I thought about this question. I appreciate you providing them to us in advance. And there are several things I could say. Probably the biggest problem, though, will be to help the commissioners come to an agreement. I think what we've seen in the King County process, what we're seeing currently in the Seattle process, is that each commissioner is bringing, very valid goals and reasons for what they're trying to accomplish to the task. But ultimately, you only get to pass one plan. And so the challenge is to help the commissioners work through that. I think back to the final days of the county process, and it literally came down to pointing out to commissioners going back several meetings that they had made a decision about a certain part of the county where they were not going to change the line. At the point that they were looking at including another neighborhood into another district that the other end of that same district. And so it was incumbent on me as the district master to point out to them that if they made that change at this late part of the game, that they would have to go back and revisit a decision that they had already made several meetings prior in another part of that same district. And so that really becomes the biggest challenge, especially as you get later and later in the process, is that some late changes that you may want to make will cause you to have to re-examine perhaps decisions that you thought were already made.
And the next question is going to come from Nathan.
Good evening and thank you. What familiarity do you have working with shapefiles?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Definitely, shapefiles are one of the data formats that we utilize very heavily in GIS. All GIS shops, I believe, will be able to tell you that they can work with shapefiles. It's kind of a dated format at this point. However, we use them still extensively, and we also use them as exchange files for other software packages. A good example of this, you may be familiar with Dave's Redistricting, which is a website that was built by a individual who's very interested in redistricting issues nationwide. He happens to live in Washington State. But one of the exchange files that can be used to import and export data from that website is the shapefile. And so we certainly utilize them every day in all sorts of different projects and utilize them in the context of districting work as well.
Great, thank you. Jocelyn, are you on the line and able to ask the next question? Then the next question will come from Simone.
Sorry. So we're on question number 8. Cracking and packing can be a serious issue. How would you prevent this from happening?
Okay, I actually had us on question 7, but I'm happy to answer question 8
Oh,
if that's
sorry.
okay.
I think me jumping up, I just was like, what question am I on? Okay, sorry, 7.
Yes, 7.
How do you plan to understand and ensure communities of mutual interest are not separated? What does the term communities of mutual interest mean to you?
Okay, well, I would refer back, first of all, to the earlier answer I gave about our role as districting master. In many ways, communities of mutual interest is something that you as commissioners will need to define. What communities are you attempting to keep together in one district, for example? There are several different definitions of that. You can look at that in terms of pure demographics, and that is often what you're looking at during a districting process. You're looking at, as you're redrawing the boundaries, what are the percentages of the racial demographics that are resulting from the new lines that you're drawing. And so that's one way that you can look at communities of mutual interest. Interestingly, in the county process, instead of looking at racial demographics, in a lot of cases, they were utilizing known neighborhood boundaries. For example, the Chinatown International District under the former districting plan was divided between two county council districts. And there were enough commissioners that felt strongly enough that they should be kept in one district. And so that was defined by the commissioners in that case as a community of mutual interest. So ultimately, I think people are usually thinking demographics, but they're not always thinking of demographics. You could also be looking at existing political districts of other stripes. For example, the legislative districts at the state level are often for people who live in a certain neighborhood, they often associate their state representative with their community of interest. And so when you start looking at boundaries such as those, that can be considered a community of mutual interest. Another one is school boundaries. The catchment area between two different high schools is sometimes thought of as a community of interest. But ultimately, it comes down to how you as a commissioner want to define that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a gentle reminder to everyone here, we're at our halfway mark. The next question goes to Angela.
Yes, cracking and packing can be a serious issue. How would you prevent this from happening?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I agree. It is. We're lucky, I would venture to say, that we live in the state that we live in that pretty much forbids such things. So first of all, I would say that by law, we would not be allowed to go down that road. As the districting master, if we are lucky enough to be selected, I would be advising you along the way in order to avoid such a situation. It does happen, however, and it can come down to, usually when people are talking about cracking and packing, they're talking about one of two things. They're talking about demographics. For example, taking all of the population of one racial designation and putting it into one district in order to limit their ability to influence the vote in other districts. Alternately, cracking it does exactly the opposite. It takes that racial demographic group and splits it across districts and thereby dilutes their voting power. If that were something that was stated as a goal by any of the commissioners, I would likely seek help from your city attorney to point out the undesirability of doing that. I would also be watching the demographics as you draw your lines to point out if you were approaching such a situation inadvertently, so that it wasn't going to become an issue for you going forward. The other way that people usually think of this is on voting preference, usually Republican, Democrat. And because city elections are not partisan, I don't anticipate this being a problem. There are ways to analyze the voters for that, but I don't anticipate, given the fact that your elections are nonpartisan, that you'll want to do that. So I don't anticipate that sort of cracking and packing being a problem for this go round for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question comes from me. I'm actually going to circle back to question number 4 that got skipped. How would you keep an open communication and the districting commission informed?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't notice that we had missed that one. But it's an important question. So the first thing I would say is that we will be accessible to you as commissioners, to your staff that is coordinating all of the issues. Many of us, most of us are working remotely, which means that we have our laptops at home and although we are 40-hour employees Monday through Friday, the fact of the matter is during telecommute that we're all doing things a bit differently, and we're extremely accessible at odd hours even. So I would say that as one aspect. There are lots of ways that we can keep you informed. One of the successful ways that we've been doing it is by building a mapping website for you to be able to access all of the data anytime you want, along with all the demographics, along with other geographic information, such as school locations, such as other geographic electoral districts, legislative boundaries, the current council districts, all of the different proposals, onto a website that will enable you to click and query and ask questions to your heart's content at any time of the day or night. That has been really well received in the other two processes that we've been a part of, and we would do the same. We've proposed to do the same in this process.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is from Scott.
Yeah,
we're back on
sorry.
question number 9.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 9.
How did you find my copy? How would you suggest presenting the districting? Excuse me. How would you suggest presenting the districting map to the people of our city?
Yes, so I'm assuming that this means during the process and at the end of the process. During the process, the exact same map that I was just talking about, online, interactive, what we call a web map, would be available to the public to ask the same sorts of questions that we were just talking about, so that they can see the current boundaries, so that they can see the current demographics, so that they can see any of the proposals in real time. They can zoom in to see what street the line is proposed to go down, so that they can see the other information that you may be taking into consideration, neighborhood boundaries, other communities of interest as you define them on the map. And so during the process, in our proposal, we would be creating a web map like that for the citizens to have access to the same information that you all will have, and help them get educated on the process that you're going through. At the end of that process, once you've adopted a plan, all of the digital data that we generate during this districting will be provided back to the city for you to provide to the people of your city. We will keep our website active for a period of time, likely at least through the end of the year. But by that time, the city will have ample ability to take the data that is generated and post it back up to the city's website. There will be hard copy maps that we could potentially produce. Definitely every map will be in a PDF form that people will be able to print at home themselves, or take to Kinko's and print in a large format if they like. I guess Kinko's is FedEx now. I'm dating myself, but you know what I mean. So many different ways of providing information back to the people of Everett.
Thank you. And the next question comes from Anna.
What assistance do you expect or need from city staff to support your work?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, well, we certainly expect to work closely with city staff, just as we have in the other processes that we've been a part of. We expect to coordinate with you on meeting times, on your expectations for what we need to bring to a meeting, what we need to be ready to present at a meeting. And so we would hope to work with city staff to make sure that we're all on the same page there. We're likely to need some help from your city GIS staff in order to get access to specific GIS data that will help support this work, information about neighborhoods, about communities of interest that we might not have access to. And so as with the two other processes that I've been talking about, I do expect that we would want to coordinate with your GIS staff at the city of Everett. What that will look like for them, hopefully it will not be a big burden. I don't expect it to be. I'm aware, that the city has good data already, and so I don't anticipate asking for anything that they can't easily provide. But definitely will need access to them for that. Apart from that, apart from coordinating with the staff that supports your committee and with the city technical staff, the GIS staff, I don't anticipate it to be a heavy load for the city staff.
Thank you.
And the final question is going to come from Jared.
Thank you. Our final question for you is, are you able to attend community meetings once we have a draft map ready for the community to provide input on? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Yes, we fully expect to be a part of those meetings. And of course, we'll need to coordinate schedules for that. But absolutely, we will be there either online or in person as you request, to be able to discuss the boundaries themselves. Oftentimes during these meetings, in the processes that we've been a part of, what the crowd really appreciates is a detailed overview of the proposals, going through which neighborhoods fall into which district, what the rough street boundaries are, just covering some of the considerations that went into each of the proposals. And so as districting master, we know that that we'll be asked to do that, and we'll be prepared to do that. And then another part of those meetings is being ready to contribute factual information, not opinions, but factual information about some ideas that might come up during the course of a meeting, discussions that you may have, ideas that you may have, the impacts of those ideas. And we recognize that you'll rely on us for a lot of those sorts of information bits that you'll need to have a productive meeting. So we'll be there to provide that help too.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today. From the commissioners, are there any follow-up questions for the questions that were asked? Scott?
Thanks. So Dennis, obviously working King County, I imagine districting is busy right now. Any concerns that you guys, your office has bandwidth to handle this? And should we have any concern that push comes to shove that King County clients might cause you to deprioritize us?
That's a great question, Commissioner, and I appreciate it. I recognize that you may have concerns along those lines. I feel lucky to work with the staff that has gained a lot of expertise on this. I will strive to be there if we're so lucky as to be selected as the districting master. The official one, me, if I were that person, I would strive to be there myself. However, I can promise you that we have several staff members who are just as capable as I am of being in meetings like that and presenting to them. They do it all the time. In fact, Mary Ulrich on my staff has been attending. I was out for a great part of April on vacation, and Mary very capably handled all of the Seattle districting meetings during that time. So we have bandwidth. We have an adequate staff to be able to support that. There may be some conflicts, to be very honest, but I'm confident that between me and my staff, we can be there at any time that you designate.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 2 minutes left. Any final questions? Okay, great. Dennis, thank you so much for your time today and for your proposal, and we will be in touch shortly.
I appreciate the opportunity and hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm here, but I'm on my phone and now I have to set up my little device. So you're going to be looking at the ceiling for a moment and I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No problem. You're a whole human. Thank you for being here.
I feel like I'm going back to elementary Zoom classroom.
All good. Nicole, are we going to go straight into the next interview or are we going to take a quick break? What did you envision for that?
I envision 5-minute breaks in between just to make sure that our next candidate can get on, and if there's tech issues or anything like that, and then also to give all of you a quick break. So we have
Great.
6 minutes, and I'm gonna check and see where our next candidate is, and make sure there's no emails or anything in my inbox of cancellations, and we'll see you in just a few minutes.
Okay. Great. And I see a whole host of Flow Analytics on the line. So we will be back 5:45. Open up the floor to the commission. It's 5:45. So we're going to go ahead and get back to business. Welcome, Flow Analytics team. Nice to see all three of you.
Hopefully there's one more.
For those of you who are joining, so Flow Analytics has a presentation that goes through the 11 questions. The question to us is that okay? Can they just go through the questions themselves? Any opposition? No, it looks like we're okay with that. So any way we can make it happen, we're open as long as we stick to the 11 questions. And then if the commission has any follow-up, we'll ask you.
Absolutely, yeah. Feel free to jump in or at any point. But if that works, I'll go ahead and share my screen. And can I just make sure if we're ready to go?
Yeah, we are all back and ready.
Okay. And are Kent and Catherine here as well?
Yep, I'm here with Catherine.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead and share my screen then. Just a second. Okay, and can everybody see my screen? Great. Okay, so the first question, introduce yourself and provide a brief overview of your background and familiarity with Everett. So I'll start by telling you just a bit about Flow Analytics as a company. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of a larger multidisciplinary consulting firm called Mall, Foster & Alonji. We are based out of Vancouver, Washington. However, Flow's main offices are in Portland and Seattle. We're a GIS and data analytics firm, and we work with local governments and school districts really throughout the Northwest, although we do a lot of work outside the Northwest as well, but our focus is in the Northwest. And we're the sole service provider for the Association of Washington Cities GIS Consortium. We're very familiar with all the cities in Washington as a result of that. I'm a former AWC employee, but we are, municipal government in Washington is a big focus area for us. We've done 46 local government redistricting projects in the past year. 20 of those have been within Washington. We've done those throughout the country, however. So we've done cities such as New Orleans, Reno, Nevada, Pullman, Roseville, California, a whole bunch of others. We've done a lot of counties as well, including Snohomish County and the County of San Diego, which has been our largest project to date. We've done a ton of special districts as well. So we've really, we've been through a lot of these projects and we've learned a lot of lessons in the process. So now we'll just introduce the staff real quick. My name is John McKenzie. I've written down the title of redistricting lead. That's really just to say that I often jump in and out of projects, helping out where help is needed. So with that, I'll turn it over to the rest of the folks to introduce themselves, and we'll go to Kent.
Hey, good evening. I'm Kent Martin, a senior planner with Flow Analytics, and I would be the project manager for this project. I've led multiple county and municipality redistricting projects this year, including the council district redistricting for Snohomish County this past fall. Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine Murdoch, and I would be the communications lead for this project. I have over 8 years of experience consulting with public sector clients on communications and public engagement, and I've lived in the Puget Sound region for most of my life, and have recently had the pleasure of working in Snohomish County on the Snohomish County redistricting process, and then also with the Port of Everett recently on some strategic communications efforts. Alex?
Everyone, my name is Alex Brosh. I'm a senior demographer and data analyst with Flow. I'm based in the Portland office, and I work with census data frequently, specifically with school districts, helping them with enrollment forecasting, and then have also been a part of many of the redistricting projects that we've worked on, particularly Snohomish and a few others in Washington.
Thank you, Alex. So just one other thing I'll mention is that in addition to the folks on the call today, you see we have Kevin Rancic up here. He's actually one of the another one of our analysts, and he was doing redistricting before joining Flow. He was working for the Oregon legislature doing their redistricting as well. But in addition to these folks, we have 16 other GIS and data analysts. We have a large support staff supporting these projects. Okay, question 2. Have you ever worked for a redistricting commission or like body? We certainly have. As Kent mentioned, we worked with the Snohomish County Redistricting Commission, which was an appointed bipartisan commission. We also worked with the County of San Diego Redistricting Commission, which is an independent citizens commission, so a little bit of a different makeup there. And same thing with the city of Roseville in California, as well as the city of Lincoln. So we've worked with really different styles of commissions throughout redistricting. And then I'll also note that, you know, in a lot of our school district work, we're doing attendance area redistricting for schools, and we work with commissions and committees for that as well. Those are often made up of parents or teachers and school administrators and folks like that. So this is a type of project we're very familiar in, working with commissions and helping to guide commissions through these sort of complicated and, you know, can be controversial processes.
So question number 3 is, please explain how you would view the role of district master. We believe our role in this capacity is really to provide you as the redistricting commission with the information and the support that you need to make informed decisions for Everett constituents. We have demonstrated experience and technical tools in which we can effectively synthesize the 2020 census data, as well as any generated community input to create new council district scenarios for this commission to review, and throughout this process to subsequently revise for the ultimate purpose of generating a final scenario that not only encompasses the community needs and the input that they have provided, but also meets all legal redistricting requirements.
Great. So question number 4, how would you keep open communication in the districting commission informed? I think something that we found to be really important here is ensuring that you all as the commission have the information that you need, and that we have a really clear and transparent public process. So we always start off the process with every commission with kind of a redistricting 101 presentation, so that every commissioner has the information they need about the process before we launch into a public hearing or a public meeting. As members of the commission, we certainly understand that you might be asked questions about the process by members of your community or others, and we want to be sure that you feel like you have the knowledge you need about the process to answer those questions. This presentation is also then repeated for the public in that first presentation to them. So then you get the advantage of hearing it twice and having it really sink in. The commission also has the opportunity to review the schedule and make sure that it meets your needs. We really want to be sure that we get you the materials enough in advance of public meetings or hearings, and that the schedule doesn't present any issues for your participation. And the last note I'll just mention is that we really found it helpful to have the city as a liaison between the commission and Flow as well. We know that we're only with you for a short time, and you may already have built a relationship with city staff and a process for sharing your feedback. And so we really want to respect that process and that relationship and weave it into our feedback collection process.
Okay, so what is the biggest problem that you would expect to face when reviewing Everett's district map? And I sort of restructure this question just a little bit because, you know, the most important challenge that you're going to face and that every single redistricting project faces is earning the trust of your community. It's absolutely essential. You can't draw the best boundaries unless you have input from your residents. That is another piece of data that we can only get from the community. So if they don't trust the process, they're not going to participate and we're not going to have that data. So it's the most important challenge to overcome in these processes is to make sure that you are communicating clearly and that the public understands what is going on so that they will participate and you will be able to draw the best lines for your community. So in order to do that, we really focus on educating both the commission and the public about the process, how it's going to go, letting the community know clearly when and where and how they will have opportunities to participate in the process. And lastly, and I would say most importantly, demonstrate that you're acting on the input you receive. You're not just having them talk into a vacuum, but showing and demonstrating how the input we received and how the commission received from the community is being put into place in these maps, or how changes maybe they're asking for or why they are not being put into the map. That can be equally important too. You know, there may be things that we simply can't do, and it's important to show that to the community as well, so they understand exactly what's going on and how decisions are being made. And that's always the biggest challenge these projects face.
Number 6 was, what familiarity do you have with working with shapefiles? And this is a short one because Flow works with shapefiles and many other geospatial file types on nearly every project that we are part of, whether it's for school districts or redistricting or local governments. And many of our staff have degrees in geography and GIS.
And question 7, how do you plan to understand and ensure communities of mutual interest are not separated? What does the term communities of mutual interest mean to you? So this is a really important one and builds off of John's question 5 around the importance of public engagement. As John was explaining, really a key part of our process is that community engagement, as communities often really know best what communities of interest need to be preserved. I think the value of our team is really bringing in both of those lenses. We have that community engagement expertise, and we also have the GIS expertise on one team, and that really makes a super valuable team. I think in order to give feedback, it's also really important to understand what communities of interest are. So we start that process by defining them. We really like these definitions from the state of California as they define them as part of their redistricting process. So you can see them on the screen. That a community of interest is a population that shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. And then importantly, they do not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. I think that's a really great starting point to help the community understand what a community of interest might be and how they could share that feedback. And then we also give them examples and tell them, you know, a neighborhood could be a community of interest, a faith community, if it's geographically located, could be a community of interest. I think the other thing that we do that we found is really important is we help communities understand that while our goal is to keep as many communities of interest together as possible, we certainly can't ensure that all communities will be together if keeping them together makes the population unbalanced, or if it violates another piece of redistricting that we can't violate according to the law. So we have to keep in line with those legal requirements. And then communities of interest come second as something that we're really trying to protect. Another important feature of communities of interest is having easy and accessible ways to give feedback. And so John's going to talk a little bit more about one of our tools to do that.
Yeah, so in terms of preserving COIs, we, you know, as Catherine obviously stressed, we really recognize the importance of that. So we developed an application that would be part of this project called the Community Builder. And it's just a simple mapping tool that allows the residents of Everett to go in and draw their particular community of interest, and also provide some other information and testimony about why, you know, why their neighborhood is or why their community is a community of interest, and as well as to define it geographically in the map. And they submit that to us. And that is incredibly valuable to us, because what we do is we've developed some other tools that actually bring those boundaries into redistricting software that we use, that will then inform us when we're drawing maps if those are split. And if they are split, it will tell us what the population split is in terms of the demographics and the numbers. And if they're preserved, we get a nice little check mark, as you can see there. But we also get to associate the actual testimony that came with that community of interest that was drawn right there in the tool itself. So it's easy for us to sort of double check and just make sure we're not preserving communities of interest, or not splitting, inadvertently splitting any communities of interest that we don't have to. And then the other thing I just want to note is, you know, accessibility to this is really important. We understand not everybody may be able to go on there and draw their own community of interest. So public testimony that people provide in person or through a Zoom hearing or things like that, we will translate that into our tools as well and represent those geographies as best as we can, so that all of that information is being brought into our tools and we can make sure we're preserving the communities to the best of our ability. Okay, cracking and packing can be a serious issue. It sure can. How would you prevent this from happening? So I always like to say, you know, the best way to draw lines that both don't violate the Voting Rights Act or favor a political party is to simply draw your lines and boundaries following the guidelines described in RCW 7629A 010, right? And then also make sure you avoid looking at any voting or political affiliation data during the redistricting process. You know, you need to be focused on preserving your communities of interest, making sure that your districts are contiguous and within that 7.5% threshold that we have here as a total population balance for the city of Everett. So that's very important. If after you have drawn your maps, you want to do an assessment to make sure that they are not in violation of the Voting Rights Act or in violation of any sort of political gerrymandering, that's certainly something you can do. The redistricting data that everyone works with does include the race and ethnicity data. And so you can do some simple evaluations with that. And if you were, you know, I don't think you would need to do this, but if you did want to look at partisan information, we're actually currently under contract with the ACLU of New Hampshire to examine partisan gerrymandering and partisan maps coming out of the state legislature there. We've written some reports for them, and this is a map we made that was showing that one of the proposed maps actually was gerrymandered with packing and cracking. They packed District 2. As you can see here, this is the total Democratic vote share, and they cracked Districts 1 and 3 here, and we were able to identify that by conducting a partisan lean analysis on this information. So once again, I don't think you will need to do that in this case, but if you did, it's something we're very familiar with and would be able to do for you as well. And that would just ensure that something like you see here is not going on because they're not getting good publicity for having done this.
Yeah, the ninth question was how we would suggest presenting the districting map to the people of Everett. And we think what's key to this is having multiple formats because people digest this information in different ways. So we want to have maps that are accessible to everyone. So one very simple way and straightforward way is just having large printed maps for people to really dig into and take a look at. But then sometimes we know people want to go a little bit deeper, see a little bit more detail. So we produce online web maps that let you do things like zoom in or toggle layers on and off so you can see relationships between some of the data. And then what we found handy is an extension of those web maps into what we call story maps, which I think we'll look at in a second as an example, to really zoom in on these like focus areas where there are changes and we can examine them. So here's an example of a static PDF map that shows all the districts or zones, and then diving into a deeper zoomed in look so we can see where particular changes occurred from existing to proposed, and a description of what changed. And then as an example of our online maps, we see here, this is in particular San Diego County, where someone could zoom in to get a closer look. They could click on particular features to see the information, like in this case, District 4 and its overall range, and ideal population, its total population. And then lastly, those story maps is a way to present the data visually and walk someone through how we got from point A to point B, going from the existing map, using the 2020 census data, and understanding the particular changes that occurred along the way.
Just
So what assistance do you expect?
I'm sorry, just a gentle reminder, we have about 10 minutes left with our time together, okay?
Great, thank you. What assistance do you expect or need from city staff to support your work? One of my major goals as a project manager in each of these redistricting projects, especially when we're working on a project that has a independent redistricting commission, is to really work to develop early on a trusting relationship with the city staff. The city staff can be tremendous liaisons in this process between us as consultants at Flow and you as redistricting commissioners. And so that's really a point that we work on early on to make sure that we can have a great trusting relationship throughout the process. At project outset, we'll work with the city staff to develop project timelines. And these timelines would include both the commission meetings, where we would get information from you and present information to you, the council meetings where we would give updates to the council on progress and receive any input they want to give, public meetings where we would gather information from the public in various modes, and then also determining some timelines for when draft developments would be available for input, as well as what reporting would need to occur throughout the process. We also really rely on city staff to provide data sources and anecdotal information about the city of Everett. We use both of these and really infuse them into our council district scenario modeling as distinct pieces of information. During the redistricting process, we rely on the city staff also for the posting of any draft maps, any revisions, meeting notifications, and also the project progress, so that folks in the city of Everett can go to that website and really see what is occurring from this commission. We also would work with them to review timelines throughout this project, because sometimes public input that arises or is needed and or commission needs change throughout the process, and so we may need to revise some timelines along the way. So in summary, we just truly partner with city staff for all of our redistricting projects.
Okay, so lastly, are you able to attend community meetings once we have draft maps ready for the community to provide input on? The answer is yes, we certainly can. And we can do that in whatever capacity makes the most sense, whether that's in person or a hybrid approach or just virtual. We've sort of done it all in the past year with redistricting. I'll say from our experience, we have found hybrid approach to be very helpful in that it allows the most people to participate. You get a lot of folks who sometimes can't get there in person. And so it's great for them to have a virtual option to provide some input and public testimony. At the same time, you have folks who maybe aren't comfortable using the computer or maybe they have poor internet or something like that. And so it's easier for them to come in and provide input that way. And so, we really have seen a lot of success with making sure that people have both options in this day and age. And but we are, here to support the commission, and obviously the commission, you're members of that community. So what's best for the people of Everett, and we're there to support you. So whatever capacity we're needed in, that's what we can do. I think we put obviously all in person does, there are price implications for everything being in person, but we've really found that having that hybrid approach can really be helpful. And I think that's it, other than thank you for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity, and happy to answer any follow-up questions, or if you have other questions, happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all of you being here and for the presentation. From the commissioners, does anyone have any specific follow-up questions to their answers?
Yeah, do you want me to ask that same question just to keep a level playing field, or?
Or if it's tailored specifically to any of their responses about, and I think you were talking about prioritization and capacity for a project like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Any concerns given how much districting is going on right now, that you have the bandwidth to do this, and that we wouldn't get deprioritized in favor of bigger jurisdictions? Obviously, if we're doing it, regarding New Hampshire or San Diego County, we're somewhat smaller. Should we have any concerns about that?
No, you got us at the right time, I have to say. So no, absolutely not. We, most of our redistricting finished up in January, and we've had, we still have several projects going on, but really the bulk of it ended at around the first of the year. And so, no, if you had contacted us last fall, we probably wouldn't have responded. It was really, it was a heavy workload. But no, now we've got plenty of capacity, and we love working on projects that are in our backyard, so to speak. So no, we're ready to go, plenty of capacity.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Any additional follow-up questions? We have about 5 minutes left. Nathan has his hand up.
Yeah, I think Scott also asked, I think, of the previous proposal as well. Who owns the data in the end? Is the work product owned by you folks and accessible to us, or us, the city, or is it owned by the city, and then the city's going to get a copy of it essentially in total at the end of anything?
Yeah, you'll get everything, and it's all census data, right? So it's all, I guess, it's owned by everybody, taxpayers. But yeah, you'll have all the data products. We may host something. When we talk about online, the web maps that we put, we may host them on our, on our site as we do the project, but the data would all be delivered to you. So if you wanted to replicate that on your own, the city's ArcGIS online account or something like that, that could certainly be done. So the data will all go to the city or the commission, depending on, I guess, the legality of it. But yes, we would turn over all the data and the final information for the maps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Yeah, and we'll be in touch with our decision soon.
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
looks like we could have cut the interview time down a few minutes and we would have saved some time this evening, but that's okay. We have until 6:20 for our final interview, although it looks like Bob is already here. So if you want to get started early, we could do that. If Bob, if you're ready.
I sure am. I am definitely ready right now, if you can hear me.
We can. Is that okay
Awesome.
with all of you? Do we need a quick break or are we good to go? I'm seeing thumbs up.
Yeah.
All right.
All thumbs up. We'll get started. Welcome, Bob. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Leah. I'm the chair of the commission, and we are ready to go.
Great.
The first question is actually going to come from Commissioner Nathan.
Please introduce yourself and provide a brief overview of your background and your familiarity with Everett.
Well, I am Bob Schweitzer, the owner of Sammamish Data Systems. I don't have a giant packed team. It is me. I've been doing the redistricting out of Sammamish Data Systems for the past well over 30 years. We specialize exclusively now in the state of Washington. We're very local. I'm located down here in Redmond. Love Everett. Worked on the county council districts back in 2010. And I believe that Sammamish Data Systems also worked with them in 2001. And I believe my father actually worked with the county in 1991. And so Sammamish Data Systems has a long track record in and around your beautiful area. We've worked with a number of the ports in Snohomish County, specifically Port of Everett and the Port of Mukilteo. I've also worked with the public utility districts there, and most every school district in your area that does not have school districts that are 100% at large. There's still a few of them out there grandfathered in, like the city was not too long ago. That's my basic background.
Thank you. And the next question comes from Jocelyn.
Hi there. Have you ever worked for a redistricting commission or like body? Please explain, and if not, what background do you have that might be similar?
Well, in 2001, I worked specifically for your Snohomish County Redistricting Commission. We met in the district headquarters there in the tower. Had fun working with the guys on coming up with, we ended up drafting 7 different redistricting plans through the course of working with the commission. And it was a lot of fun of give and take, working with both sides and the independent middle. I worked directly with Garth on during that. I didn't bid on it for this time around simply because of, as your previous guest talked about, fall was kind of busy with the massive delay in the census and the changing of quite a number of laws. It was pretty chaos during that period of time. So yeah, and things have settled down for all of us. Although I still have about 50 or 60 active redistricting plans I'm working on throughout the state of Washington.
The next question comes from Simone.
Hello. So question 3, please explain how you view the role of district master.
Well, I mostly see it as a guide. I'm the one who has the technical knowledge of the redistricting and to help guide the the commission in doing the, doing the right thing or doing whatever the rules the commission sets, and help adhere to that going forward in a nice, smooth and orderly fashion. It's yeah, I just try to be the helpful individual with all of the knowledge on redistricting, and see that as just a guide.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question comes from Angela. Angela, I think you're muted.
Here we go. Hello.
Hi.
Would you keep open communication and the districting commission informed?
Well, that's easy. Yes. I will certainly attend every one of the meetings that I am asked to attend. I will definitely be able to provide the maps and reports in a very timely fashion. And if I need to attend a meeting in person, I just get on 405 and come up and say hello.
Okay, thank you.
And I am the person asking the next question. What is the biggest problem that you would expect to face when reviewing Everett's district map?
Well, it shouldn't be all that much of a problem. Your district should be already based on whole census blocks. It's just a matter of loading in the current assignment into the 2020 census. The biggest problem that I've run into loading older, well, with any map from the from older than 2010 or 2010 and up, is the Census Bureau has done a lot of census block consolidations. So there are, throughout the entire nation, there are less census blocks in 2020 than there was in 2010. In 2010 had more census blocks than they had in 2000. The only thing I've ever run into is not all of the district boundary lines may translate from the 2010 census perfectly, but we should be able to find a close by boundary line for the reviewing of the current population to your current director districts. Anything moving forward on creating or revising the plan would of course be using the 2020 census, and those areas where the 2010 and did not match the 2020, those would be just areas that we would tackle first and make sure they line up. Of course, you also are following precincts. We would want to make sure that we're using the most current precincts. I believe Snohomish County has recently posted their 2022 precincts in regards to all of the state redistricting changes.
Thank you. The next question is from Scott.
Thanks. What familiarity do you have working with shape files?
Well, I have my own GIS proprietary system. I import shape files into my system. So the shape files are a proprietary format of the ESRI software, and that is their interchange file. When it comes to exportation, I prefer to export to a XLS file or to a DBF file, which is a DBase file, for importation into whichever system people are using, specifically because the projection that is being used in the Census Bureau files may have been adapted to to other local systems because not all counties and cities necessarily want to use the exact same projection. And in that case, they'll be loading in the exact same geography into their system, but will already be in the boundary files that they have will be already in their projection. So that way they don't have to reproject the shape files that I would provide. But if that was a requirement, sure, I can also provide shape files as well. But yeah, it's an ESRI format file.
And the next question is from Anna.
Hello. So how do you plan to understand and ensure communities of mutual interest are not separated? And what does the term communities of mutual interest means to you?
Well, that is a very open-ended term of communities of interest. Communities of interest could be tribal community, such as the Tulalip tribe north of town. In other areas, it may be simply your existing director districts could be classified as an area of common interest. Had a community in the school district of Blaine, which they classified themselves as a community of interest and actively sought to have a board member put into that would serve their community of interest. So in theirs, it was literally a community of homes that banded together and wanted more representation. So it can be a racial group, it could be an ethnic group, it can be existing boundaries, and it can be neighborhoods and the like. It's very open-ended as to what constitutes a community of interest. But I'm flexible on the term.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question comes from Susan.
Hi, cracking and packing can be a serious issue. How would you prevent this from happening?
Well, primarily, I don't use political data when I'm doing the redistricting work ahead of time. Primarily I only use the data supplied by the Census Bureau when it comes to the redistricting data, the public law 94-171 data. So mostly when it comes to helping prevent cracking or packing is to minimize the numbers of changes that you're doing, knowing that your existing districts were done with great care. What was it, 2 years ago, I believe, that there was a reason for the boundaries to be in that shape, to primarily focus on updating the new boundaries for the changes in population and letting the natural growth of the boundary line move here and there in logical steps of population and in compactness and of course always contiguousness. So minimizing the changes and focusing on minor changes is the key to not rocking the boat and trying to handpick from little areas here and there.
Okay, great. And the next question is from Jared.
Thank you. How would you suggest presenting the districting map to the people of our city?
Well, renting blimps are kind of expensive, so I think we should forego putting it on the side of a blimp. But I do all of my work in various poster sizes of PDF maps with the street detail onto it as overlays to see where these changes are. Highlight onto the maps where the changes have been focused on and the reasonings for them, such as, you know, where is the how much population was moved here and there. So various sizes of PDF maps, I find them to be the best way to handle it. The larger the poster size, the more you can zoom in and see the finer detail. And then of course, the simple 8.5 by 11 size is a rock solid standard for detailed insets. But yeah, I think blimps are out.
Maybe, I don't know. I didn't think about that one. And the next question comes from Nathan.
What assistance do you expect to need from city staff to support your work?
All I need to know is what is your existing director districts, whether it be the previously mentioned shapefile, whether it's a list of the you know, written out meets and bounds description as commonly required. Those are the worst ways to get it, is by meets and bounds, but every redistricting plan I create, I still always make that wonderful meets and bounds description because somebody out there seems to want it. But really, that's all I need. I am live to do redistricting anywhere in the entire state of Washington, and with a few minor tweaks anywhere in the country, but I really don't want to go to Vermont or San Diego. I'd rather stick to our little beautiful neck in the woods. Although it was beautiful yesterday, I saw it raining earlier today.
And the final question tonight comes from Jocelyn.
All righty. Are you able to attend the community meetings once we have draft maps ready for the community to provide input on?
I sure am. I do tailor down my sarcasm a little bit for those. Generally, the community wants a nice, polished, professional person. But yeah, I can certainly attend either virtually or in person. That's not a problem. It's always interesting hearing what the public wants. But you know, if you keep your changes small, it's generally harder to argue with those changes. But unfortunately, Snohomish County in total has grown extensively. I haven't looked specifically in the city in your beautiful city, but wow, there's been some interesting changes throughout Snohomish County, that's for sure.
Great. Nicole, how are we doing on time? I didn't catch the exact time we started.
We have, let me check my timer here. We have 10 minutes though, so.
Okay, great. Scott, do you want to ask the follow-up question?
Sure. So wondering, given how the large number of clients you're working on, I'm not sure how big your operation is. Do we have any concern that you have the bandwidth to do this, and that we might get deprioritized over, say, a bigger jurisdiction or something like that?
Nah, no. Yeah, the fact is that most everybody out there needs to have this done by November 15th. You typically would have started in April 1st-ish timeframe. So we're not really that far beyond the normal starting time. the time has been shortened. It used to be a whole 8 months. So that would put it approximately the middle of December, depending on when the redistricting commission quote unquote published the data. Now it's set to a fixed time frame of November 15th. That really doesn't change the timeline that much. It just lops off about a month. A lot of municipalities and jurisdictions have already been done. So yeah, the workload it's constant, but it is not any way that I would ignore the fine folks of Everett.
Thank you.
Or else you could actually come down and demand. I'm local.
It's true. Thank you. Any additional follow-up questions for Bob? Go ahead, Angela.
Yes, Bob, in your proposal, you didn't really cover the costs very well because you don't have anything in there for attending meetings. So you say that, yes, you can attend all these meetings with the commission and the public, but your summary of fees doesn't include any of that. So
well, that would be on an hourly basis.
Okay.
And so that would just be my hourly charge. Each of the redistricting plans is $300 for me to produce a redistricting plan. And then on top of that is just $500. And then there on top of that is any hourly figure beyond the normal meetings where we're discussing the redistricting plan.
Okay, and I don't see your hourly fees on this proposal.
Oh, it's $125.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies for not including that. I thought I did.
Well, I could be missing it too, so.
Any additional questions before we close out our time with Bob? Okay, Bob, well, I don't see any hands up. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will be making our decision shortly. As you are already aware, we are on a timeline, so we will be making our decision soon, and we will let you know.
Good luck and have a lot of fun with this, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, team. So we have a couple of options. We can go ahead and discuss tonight. We can pause. With a pause, we would need to schedule a special session, probably pretty quickly for next week. How are we feeling? Are we ready to discuss? Do we need to simmer on this? What do we think?
I'm good to talk. If everybody else is, if everybody else wants to take a break, good for that too.
Yeah, I'm ready to discuss.
Okay, great. So who wants to go first?
Anybody that has experience with flow that worked with the county, Scott, that might be you. Was there a good feeling? Was that a good relationship? Did everything get done? They definitely do have a lot of bells and whistles, and even the document that they sent with all of the pictures and their plan, I thought was like visually appealing. Anybody have any experience with them?
I did not check any references from the candidates, just for the record.
Okay, just because they mentioned that they had worked with the county. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was something. Oh, sorry.
I was going to take on a similar question. The last one interviewed mentioned, Garth over at the elections department wondered. So I had the same question, wondering, did we check any references? So similar question.
Anna, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so actually that was the same as Scott and Jocelyn, because when I was reading and going through all the documents, I was curious to have references, because as we usually do, like when hiring someone, we look for references. So yeah, I think I would like to see that first before making a decision.
Okay, that's good to know. Nicole, how would we go about communicating with any type of references? How would that work?
They provided references. At least I know that the data set Bob did for sure. And the other ones, I believe they did as well. King County GIS did. And I don't remember seeing them for Flow, but their packet was so complete, I can't imagine they didn't have references in there as well.
It would be really easy to call Garth Fell and just get a sense of what he thinks. I'd be more than willing to do that.
Yeah, because when I saw the documents, I know the first one, the King County post, what they did, but I would like to see, like, from outside what the people thinks. You know, it's not because I went through their site and everything. It looks nice and it looks complete, but still, it's not. Yeah, so I would like to see like more, like some outside of them telling us like a reference or.
No, that makes sense. So Nicole, I think my question is actually more specific, like who would be doing that? Like, are we as commissioners, can Susan and I work together to make those contacts? Does that need to go through you?
I think probably I should call through them all and ask them all the same questions just for like transparency. And then that way the same person is interpreting like whatever people say. I'm trying to think of the most like transparent way to do that. And I think probably that would be it. And I think what I'll do is I'll email their references and ask them to send a written response. And if that doesn't work and I can only get a phone call, then I will type that up if that's okay with all of you. But I'll request a written reference.
Okay.
Then I can share it and I don't have to interpret it. And none of you have to try to interpret that either.
I see a lot of head nodding. Anyone opposed to that or have a different idea?
I'm just not sure if getting those are going to give us the feedback that we want, especially since it seems like all three of them have worked for Snohomish County specifically in similar capacities. I don't think we're going to get a response unless one of them just did an awful job. I don't think we're going to get any information that's going to help us make our decision, I don't think. Just understanding the nature of reaching out to other government organizations, they're going to be able to say, yes, they worked with them. I'm not sure what level of depth they're going to get into with how it went, unless it went horribly.
And even then, I don't think we're like, I don't think we can say, like, as government, we can say that they showed up. We can say like their time was well spent, but we can't give like personal kind of thoughts around it. So that's a good point, Simone.
I think for me, that level of due diligence. So I didn't expect that anybody would say, oh, give a real quantitative evaluation, but I guess I'd at least feel better if we got, my gosh, I would never use them again. Because if we didn't find that out and went forward, then I would worry we hadn't done our due diligence in selecting these folks. So.
Well, I'd almost be interested in, again, Snohomish County, who did they consider? And was there that price difference that we're seeing? We're seeing quite a difference in costs. So what made them go with what for us is the most expensive bid out there? And were they satisfied with what they got for that? That's sort of where I'm leaning.
Angela, I saw your hand up a moment ago. Did you have a comment?
Actually, Scott kind of said what I was going to say. Yes.
I also think it's important that we look at the fact that with Sammamish, he's one sole entity. He is the only person doing everything that we're asking of the other two that are full teams. And I see that huge price difference because so many other people need to be compensated for their work. So I definitely would love to have some sort of an idea about all three, because I totally agree with that huge price difference in all three of them.
I think something else to keep in mind too is what we're actually asking our districting master to do, because I think looking at what like Flow has offered, it's above and beyond what we've asked them to do. And I think that, you know, if we had received a proposal like that last time, it might have made sense to do something like that, because it is, at that point, it was much more of an involved process. But in reality, yes, we've had growth in Everett, but we're not reinventing the map. We don't even have that ability. We're going to be looking at our existing districts as they are right now and making small changes, ideally not splitting any precincts. So that, again, it limits you quite a bit on how you're going to make those changes. I mean, looking at District 1 and 2, there's only a couple places you could even make a change to adjust population in those areas, and it continues down the map. So I think, like, in reality, any of the three of them could do fine. I think Sammamish could do fine because we don't necessarily need all of the other bells and whistles. I think just we as a commission need to decide how much do we really want our districting master to do? How much do we want them to do above and beyond just doing the map stuff? And I think that's just something for us all to think about, because they all are offering a lot of different things that are great, but it might not be necessary at this for what we're doing, and just might make things harder on us, honestly.
Yeah, I'd like to echo thumbs up, ditto Simone's comments there.
You already have the experience from doing it the first time, so I think it's great.
One specific question that I have that I've been thinking about, when we think about how we want to be supported as a commission in the public meetings, what stands out to me as I'm like looking through my notes is all three had very different answers of how they would engage in the public meetings and how they would engage. I noticed that Sammamish Data, he's a quantitative guy. That stands out. He's very focused on the numbers and how they break down. Yes, he's willing to be there in person. I think my question for the commission is, do we have a sense of what we specifically want from the districting master in these public meetings?
I would add to that as well, Leah, and that is, if we're able, are these meetings one that you would want to hold virtually or in person? Because depending on who you choose and travel, that also substantially implements your costs. And I'm working with Flora right now on the charter, and if we have to host literally in person in a district, or we just have to host a meeting for a district, because each one gets one, and then we have 2 at-large meetings. So it's 7 total community meetings, or 6 total community meetings. And could those be Zoom, or do those have to be in person? And I'm working on figuring that out for all of you right now.
Thank you for that.
So kind of going back to what I was saying before, thinking of what we would even be presenting in those meetings, we're going to have general maps that we're going to be highlighting portions where we're going to be making changes. So showing what it used to look like and then showing what we're proposing for it to look like instead. And so to me, really the value that the districting master brings is just really being able to talk about the map and be able to explain the data behind what decisions we made. And so that's kind of the value they bring into it, regardless of whoever we pick. And then as for any other more community-based decisions around whatever we're going to move line-wise, then that's really for us to be able to speak to talk to that part to the community. So really, they need to be able to, be able to show the maps, have the maps ready, and be able to speak to the data and the decisions that were made in the maps. I think anything else above and beyond that is great, but it's not fully necessary. And I think just thinking about being good stewards of city funds, I think with where we're at in this process, I just can't see spending that much on this process, just because we're not going to be able to even make that big of changes anyways. So I think it might just kind of lead the community down the wrong path if they think that there is the ability to make big changes, because we just won't be able to.
Go ahead, Susan.
Do we have the ability to say Flo is offering all the bells and whistles, but like we're saying, we don't need that. Can we negotiate with them to cut it back, that they are just providing what it is we want and bring the cost down that way? The same with King County GIS, or do we have to take what they propose?
We can go back to them with a counter proposal and say, we want to remove these things. What would that cost? I think they, particularly for Flow, they laid out their costs pretty specifically. So I think it would be fairly easy to go through it and kind of line item remove things. But there wasn't anything in there that I saw that didn't address the questions that we put together for the proposal. I think, from my perspective, the biggest cost burden of that group is the amount of staff that they have, which is pros and cons to that, however you look at it. And so I think we'd have to request that less staff work on the project. And I don't know if they do that or not, but I could totally ask.
Jocelyn?
I have the proposal in front of me, and their line item number 2 states that they think that just the community engagement and public meetings is going to be 230 hours. Is that a realistic amount of hours for $39,000? Because that I don't know if I have 230 hours to be involved in community engagement and public meetings.
No, that's not. Yeah, it's 6.
It says 230 hours.
Does that include their commute time? Because we'd have to pay them for that as well.
It doesn't itemize it. It just says 230 hours, $39,310.
Well, that's a great catch. I can.
No, travel's another 5,600.
I think part of it is they include all of the strategy coordination. So they have built into this that they would be meeting with City of Everett staff and districting staff to develop a community outreach and engagement strategy, and to create more awareness of the project throughout the city, and to make sure that we get feedback from stakeholders and community groups. And back to my previous point, we won't hardly have a lot of decisions to make in this process. And I think doing something this in depth, people are just going to get confused as to why we're doing such a hard push for feedback on something that we're only going to be asking for a pretty minimal amount of feedback on. So it's an amazing amount of community outreach they're planning to do, but I mean, it's a good page, a good page of content in there just for that.
Anna, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so looking at the three different proposals, my concern is how one person can do everything and the other ones need like 4 or 5 people to do this. So my concern is like, how do I know that is it going to be right, or is it going to be correct, or is it going to be done in a good way because of the different people? Like one person, the other one is like 5 or 4 people. But I get the point that Simone is talking about the being, knowing that Everett is in deficit. We need to be conscious about that.
Is the last thing? You're cutting out. You're cutting out, Anna.
Bad decision choosing Sammamish because the.
And now you're.
Can you hear me now?
You're cutting out. Pretty good.
Hello. Hello.
We can hear you. Can you
hear me
us?
now?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So
the
I don't
last
know.
thing we caught is being,
What was
that I caught was being conscious of the city deficit.
Okay,
that was the
can
last
you?
thing we caught from you.
Yeah, I want to be conscious of the city deficit, and if that's the case, I would choose Sammamish, but I don't know if that would be the correct thing to do for the city.
To address the first part of your comment, Anna, our first districting our districting master, the last time we did this was a one-man show, and he was able to successfully go through this process and do the community meetings and all of that. Our city staff also check all of the numbers and make sure that we're within charter, and we do review the work even if we don't necessarily do the work. So those are things that I think address a few of the things that you said, but definitely not all of the things that you said.
Yeah, that's good to know, actually.
Yeah. Nathan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo the reservations about a sole proprietor, and I know that the first districting master was a sole proprietor as well. Just from a hit by the bus or infrastructure perspective, like that's a lot of eggs to put in one basket for something that we're legally bound to complete. And so I have large reservations as an infrastructure person doing that, because there is no resiliency in that format, right? Like if something happens to Bob, God forbid, we're now in a very different place with a much worse set of things than we would be if we had a team of individuals backing whatever we're doing. When with Simone, I don't think that we need all of the bells and whistles that Flow is offering to us. It looks very pretty, and I'm sure it would be very pretty. But I think that's where I stand currently.
Thank you for those comments, Nathan. I actually haven't heard a lot of specific comments about King County. Did anyone have thoughts specifically on King County? Angela, you have your hand raised.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I was very impressed with them and thought that they would provide all the services we needed, and were very competent. I was very, very impressed with them.
Go ahead, Scott.
I'd echo those comments too. Just again, the cost. So I mean, we paid less than that for the whole shebang 2 years ago. So and maybe we go back to them and say, is this really an accurate cost for just a update? At least what I think I see, and I think others too, is essentially an update from previous districting. Because even though I would be very comfortable with them, I just would have a hard time justifying that level of cost for what I see as an update.
We could have the ability to decide to not have them participate in community meetings, and we collect the input and provide it to them. So that is something that like we could reduce what we're asking, and that would be one thing it's not required by the charter that the districting master be at those meetings. And that's kind of a low-hanging fruit thing. And I could go back through and see if there's more while you guys discuss, and see if I can pull anything else out that would make sense, that it doesn't immediately click to me that it's part of the charter.
Nathan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah.
And then Susan.
Sorry. KCIT looks like they also produced in their proposal, I think along with Flo and Bob in the meeting, an hourly rate. Is it possible to do like a set minimum spend and then time and materials after that, if we're concerned about potentially committing to such a large dollar figure up front? Maybe say, hey, we'd like to do portions of this work, we'll commit to this, and then time and materials after.
I would have to check with our purchasing department because it put out a bid. I don't know the answer to that, but they will, and I'll be able to answer that for you.
Susan?
Didn't they, the King County in their proposal, I'm not finding the specifics right now, but they said that it could very well come in under the base budget, which is the $29,000 figure. So lower than what the total that we see on our score sheet. And that might be something we could work with them, that, yeah, we would just take the basic and go from there.
So I'll go ahead, Angela.
Yes, okay. So I don't know, this budget thing, the money thing really gets me, because I spent many, many years negotiating contracts on mostly the budgeted amount on it. And I know it can be done, you know, to just tell them, you know, whoever we decide, if we think that contracted amount is too much, you know, just say, you know, that's high, you know, we liked you, but we just feel the cost is too high. What can we cut out? Like I said, I spent a lot of years doing it for the school district and very successful at it. So
We'll check in with our purchasing team about how I'm supposed to do that. And also with Flora, who's our legal expert on how I could do that. And then, so the question would be, for me, is what does that look like to you? Is it, you want them all to provide a bid that shows what they could do for $20,000? And then if so, because it can't be like, we want Flo if they can cut down 15,000, even though King County is less than that regardless, because that's not fair. So it has to be fair across the board. So what can you do for this? And then how long would you like me to give them before they return that? Because we are running up on
right
deadline, and we need to give them a reasonable time to reformat their bid. And if I do that, do I have to reopen the bid 100% to everyone in the community with those requirements? I don't know the answer to that. So Scott, maybe from your time on the council, you might remember or know I don't, and I don't want to speak to it because I don't have any idea.
Yeah, no, I think your instincts are right, Nicole. I think I think there might be the opportunity to go back to them and do, or do some value engineering, but you're right. I think if we do ask for a new set of work, then I think we're potentially having to reopen it. So I don't know. I think, obviously based on these questions, it seems to me, I would suggest to my fellow committee members that we can't decide tonight, obviously, that we need to give you a couple of days to figure this out, even before we can set another meeting, to know what the time frame is before we can meet again. So that'd be my suggestion to my fellow committee members.
I think what would be helpful for me, is to know what you as a group think a reasonable cost is for this, because I don't feel like I have a number. I hear less than what King County offered, and more than what, like, more services than what Sammamish is able to provide. But what I'm not hearing is the number that would pull this together for you. And I think if that is the question of what we could scale back, I think I need to know what the price point is that you're looking at.
Go ahead, Scott.
I wonder if King County and Flo understood that this is just a redo of a map that's just 2 years old. I meant to ask that question. I apologize. I forgot that. If they understood that, would this bid have come in different? I think Simone again summarized very well what we really see the scope of, or what needs to be done. And I wonder if they understood that.
I can go back. I think that is actually like a solid question. I could email all of them and just say that the commission wanted to ensure this. I did send them all our website and timeline and information. So, and that would show the previous, but I think that's actually like a solid thing that I can do and bring back with some information that wouldn't change like the fairness of the process. So if there's more questions like that I could go back to, that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, looking at the King County breakdown, they have $9,000 for the district alternatives development. Now, if we're talking about tweaking current ones, that seems perhaps a bit excessive. So maybe they didn't understand totally what this entailed.
We can ask for those. So if you wanted hypothetically to see what it would look like to do something different, you as a commission do have the authority to request that. So I think it would be, if you wanted that, here's what it would cost. So maybe that is I think it was Angela had brought up that the King County said that it could come in less. And so right there is, if we don't request those, there's $9,000, right? So that is things that we could cut out. And the more we understand about the process, the more we're able to kind of make those mathematical subtractions in our mind. So I think that's a great point or line item to think about.
Go ahead, Angela.
I'm completely pleased with Sammamish, their price. And in King County, if the price is lowered because there was some other misunderstanding or extras, or the money that we can take off that they said maybe added or whatever, that that price would come in reasonable. I don't think that Flo is ever going to come within anything of reason, because they were so darn high. So, even if they cut the cost in half, that's still terrible. That price that's huge. So my opinion.
No, thank you for that, Angela. I think that what I see represented from all three is they're very transparent in their approach to work, and Flow's approach to the work includes components of education, like Simone already said, bells and whistles, just things that we don't necessarily need. It's just not the right approach for the scale of the work that we're asking to be done. I think one of my reservations with Sammamish data is when we did bring up the cost breakdown, it seems like there's still a disconnect of like, we really do need a full breakdown. There was an hourly cost that wasn't included. What would the scope of that be? So I do think that we should, what I'm hearing collectively, and I agree, Nicole, is that we should go back and say, you know, maybe we can come up with a range. I don't know if we can do that, but definitely have them submit their actual cost breakdown within the scope of work that we really are asking them to do, is what I'm hearing echoed.
Yeah, Nicole, do you think it would make more sense for it to be more of a clarification as opposed to like a direct ask of, hey, we want to get it under $20,000, submit that to us? Because I think that, I don't think we'll be able to do that. But I think a clarification of, you know, based on our understanding of what's going to need to be done, it should be a fairly minimal amount. And, you know, on both sides of, you know, just clarifying there's this many meetings and there's this many meetings that we'd want them to be present for virtually or otherwise. And just like, it seems really like the public outreach portion of the King County one is kind of where the wheels really start to fall off the bus in terms of the budget. And so just figuring out if like we think maybe they weren't clear of what we actually need them to do, or if this is just how much it's going to cost them to do it. And then same with Sammamish, is just to get a little better idea of how many hours he would expect to be billing us for.
Yeah, and the outreach piece, I mean, would go to our, you know, if I just, you know, off the top of my head, put together a engagement plan around recruiting people to come to our meetings, it would be emailing all of our neighborhood chairs, all of our boards and commission participants, putting it on the mayor's social media, City of Everett social media, doing a press release, and then also doing like a push out to everyone who signs up for our newsletters and things like that. So it wouldn't be, you know, like recreating a wheel. That's what I did last time, and that's what I would do this time. This time a little bit more thoughtful, I think, about providing it in other languages and things like that, which are some lessons learned from the last round. But in a nutshell, that is what, as staff, we would do for our, what we do for our community meetings.
Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, so I have a question that I should have asked at the beginning. Like, what is the budget that Everett has for this?
That's a really good question, and it's not actually outlined. So the charter says that you as a commission get to make this decision, and it comes out of our city council budget. So that's why the kind of vague statement at the beginning, which is we spent $23,000 on this, building it from the ground up, and we have a range of costs because it is your decision. And you know, unfortunately, the way that it was put out to the voters, I can't tell you what you have to spend or get to spend. You tell me, and then our finance team figures out how to move mountains or whatever they have to do, as whatever we have to cut to figure it out to pay for it. You know, and that's unfortunate, because I think it would have been really, really great to have a little bit more boundaries around it, in my personal opinion, of course.
So Nicole, in your experience dealing with these kinds of things, how long would it take to get them back? Or can we just set that timeline? Can we say, here's what we need, this is what we need to clarify, come back and we're going to meet again next Thursday, just hypothetically. I'm not saying next Thursday, team. I'm just saying we haven't gotten there. but we're gonna meet on this date, make it happen. Do we get to set that, or in your experience, how does this work?
I think we requested, I mean, I don't think it's too far of a stretch for like what I have is, we don't want to open it back up. We want clarifying. Don't want to do anything that's going to disrupt the call for bids. And I'll check in with our purchasing department, our legal department, just to make sure that any special wording or anything is done correctly. And it's just, did you understand that this was redistricting? And if we took out the pieces we didn't ask you for, which would be examples like outreach and education, which is simply just showing up at those meetings, what would that new price down look like? And there's a couple other things that I wrote down that you all said, but in a nutshell, that's how it would look. And I think we can say, we need this back by, I could send it out tomorrow, and we could say we really need it back by in a week, which would be the
19th.
The 19th. And then you could have a few days to look at it. And if they're not able to be responsive, maybe that shows us that they're not like, Scott was kind of worried about maybe they don't have the time to invest, because a lot of the things that you have to do for districting and redistricting have to be turned around really quickly. And so, yes.
As a commission, can we all meet back next week on the 19th?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. Great.
It's my anniversary, so my wife's gonna kill me, but for a short meeting,
Oh,
yeah.
Nathan, I'm glad you said something.
We would be
Nicole,
fast.
do we have a budget for flowers to send to Nathan's wife?
Question, Nicole, would we have to send this out to all three, or is there any way? I mean, I don't imagine that there's going to be a way that flow is going to be a realistic option just based on budget, and just it would just be for a different process that what they have outlined. That what they have outlined is great for a different situation, but it's above and beyond what we would need.
So you can vote to reach out to, you can vote to eliminate a candidate. That's completely up to you as a commission. If you don't feel like that information is helpful and you've already ruled them out, I mean.
Okay, then I'd like to move for us to move forward with King County GIS and Sammamish, just to clarify the bids and see if we can figure out how much it would cost for what we actually need.
Okay, so the motion's on the floor from Simone to eliminate flow and move forward with King County and Sammamish data. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Heard of several seconds.
I'll
All
give
in
that
favor?
one to Angela, because I also saw her hand go up, so I know she said it.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? I think that was unanimous. All right, so moved.
And so we could do a special meeting on the 19th, or you could do a special meeting on the 24th. Either one of those dates work for me. If there's one, doesn't necessarily have to be a Thursday. It's helpful for all of you because we know Thursdays are kind of better. But I could also do the 24th. And we could also do the 26th, but we would absolutely have to make a decision that day. There would be no space to not make a choice on the 26th. I don't know how much time you want to give the candidate.
That way Nicole could get us information. We could give them a full week to get responses back, since chances are we're not going to do the outreach till tomorrow. That would give a full week and then give us like a day to take a look at it before we meet again. So maybe the 24th, if that works for everyone.
Is there anyone who cannot attend a meeting on the 24th?
And it will be on Zoom, and is 5 o'clock work for everyone, or should we adjust that time? So 5 o'clock on the 24th will be our special meeting via Zoom. And I'll add it to the website tomorrow. I'll get the questions out tomorrow. They will be kind of like not vague, but kind of like summary type questions. Here's what we're wondering. And yeah, I think that's great. So I will see all of you on the 24th. I'll send out just an agenda, and just for record, I know Scott knows this, but when we have a special meeting, we can't do or make decisions that are not on the agenda. So we can only vote on items that are on that agenda, and the only thing on there will be this decision as of now. So if there's anything else that you can think of that we need to add to that, please reach out to Leah, and then and CC me, and we can figure that out if you have additional items that you feel need to be added. I don't think there should be anything.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I think that was really great. We made a decision to, move forward. I think that's wonderful. So I'll see you in a week and a couple days, and I will get you the responses from our candidates as soon as I get them, so you have as much time as possible to review.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Of course. Thank
For
you.
being here.
Camera will be fixed by next meeting.
You're so fine. Thank you, Jocelyn.
Bye.
Bye.